We've been predicting the kind of games of week 13 of this college football season. So starting with Ole Miss at Florida. So Florida was so happy that they beat a terrible Kentucky team, who I know beat Ole Miss, but hasn't beat anybody else in the SEC. And Ole Miss was Kentucky's at Super Bowl, like they were with LSU, and they were so happy that they only lost to Georgia by 2 touchdowns. That they were like, we're keeping Billy Napier. We're happy with what we have. And if a team is so happy about losing to a team only by 2 touchdowns, I don't care how good the team is that beat you. Uh, your program is not in good shape. If they're so happy about that they're deciding to keep their head coach because of it, and Florida deciding to keep Billy Napier really just told me that the University of Florida no longer cares about football. And that is surprising because as hard as it is to imagine it now, because of how bad Florida has been for a long time, they did used to have some really good teams a long time ago. And Florida has so many injuries. They have injuries at the spots on their roster that they were supposed to be good at this season, which isn't really that much. But their secondary has so many injuries, and their secondary was supposed to be the strength of their defense. And of course, I don't want to see any team have injuries, even though I'm an Ole Miss fan. And Ole Miss is a passing game, though, with Florida having such a weak secondary now is not going to go well for Florida because Ole Miss has the best quarterback in the SEC and the best wide receiver and tight end room in the SEC. And Florida's quarterback Graham Mertz, who had a pretty good year last year, even though the overall team for Florida was terrible, is out for the season. So this five-star freshman DJ Lagway is now their starting quarterback, and could he be a pretty good quarterback? Of course he could, but a true freshman quarterback going against a defense as good as Ole Miss has, I do not think is going to go very well. And Florida's best wide receiver, Eugene Wilson, who actually is a really good player, will be out for this game, and he's been out for a while now. But Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin said this week that they're the healthiest they've been all season now. And usually at this point, teams are at their unhealthiest. But this is the healthiest that Ole Miss's offensive line has been all season. And Trey Harris is going to be back for this game, so that will be huge for Ole Miss. And Parrish is out for the season, most likely at running back. But I did see that Logan Diggs, a really good running back that transferred to Ole Miss this season, but hasn't played for them yet because of an injury that he suffered at last season with a different team. Might play for the first time for Ole Miss. And Ole Miss has such an advantage over Florida pretty much everywhere with coaching and on the offense and the defense. That even though Ole Miss may not play to their ceiling in this game, which I think they probably won't, coming off such a big win against Georgia, I don't think they have much of a chance of losing this game to Florida. And Ole Miss is the best at pass rusher. Princely Emmanuel, and I think will probably be rough on his former team in this game. He admitted that he left Florida because Napier is such a terrible uh, coach. I do think that Florida may be able to keep this game close for most of the game, but I think that Ole Miss will pull away and end up winning the game by a couple of touchdowns. I've got Ole Miss getting the win, 31-17 over Florida. And now the biggest game of the week, Indiana at Ohio State. So Ohio State does have some clear advantages in this game. For one is the game is at Ohio State, which is a really tough place to play, and another is that as good of a job as this coach at Signetti has done at Indiana with this transfer portal group that he brought in. Ohio State does still have a whole lot more talent on their roster than Indiana does. And even though this coach at Indiana, Signetti, seems to be a really good coach, Ryan Day has a lot more experience as a Power Five head coach, so that could be an advantage to Ohio State. But Indiana's defense has been great this season. They ranked seventh in the country in points allowed per game, only giving up 13.8 per game on average. But Ohio State's defense is the best in the country. They're only giving up 9.6 points per game on average, which ranks first in the uh, country. And Indiana's offense has been really good this season, too. They rank second in scoring, averaging 43.9 points per game. The only team that's been able to slow them down has been Michigan, which is the last team that Indiana has played. They held them to just 20 points, and that is concerning for Indiana in this game because Michigan's defense is still really talented, but it's nowhere near as good as Ohio State's defense is. But Ohio State's offense hasn't seemed to have played to their peak this season. And Ohio State's wide receiver Abuka hasn't really done much in these last couple of games. He only has a combined 3 catches in the last 2 games. They need to get him going in this game. And uh, Curtis Rourke may be a little bit better of a quarterback than Will Howard is. But Ohio State's running backs are better than Indiana's are. And I think Ohio State is better at the line of scrimmage. And I do think that this will be a defensive game and a close game that may go down to the last play, but I think Ohio State is going to win this one. I've got Ohio State getting the win 23-17 over Indiana. And now a big game in the Big 12 conference. BYU at Arizona State. So I'm not confident with my pick in this game. I could see it going either way, but I am picking Arizona State to win. My reasons are that it seems like BYU's luck may have run out, and Arizona State seems to be playing pretty good football now. And Arizona State does have a couple of really good offensive players that BYU just does not have. Arizona State's got Cameron Scadaboo at running back and Jordan Tyson at wide receiver, and Arizona State's defense has been playing a lot better this season than I thought it would, and I have a feeling that BYU is going to struggle offensively in this game. Even though I don't think Arizona State will score a ton of points, I actually think that they're going to win this game by a couple of scores. And of course, the game being at Arizona State is another reason why I think they're going to win. I've got Arizona State getting the win at 27-16 over BYU. And Now Alabama at Oklahoma. So if Alabama plays at their ceiling the rest of this season, they have a good chance to win the national championship because they're just so talented. Even though the coach isn't as good as Nick Saban was, if Alabama plays at their ceiling in this game, they will destroy Oklahoma. If they play at their ceiling, there's only a few teams that in the country that would have a chance to beat them. Like if Alabama played like they did in the first half of the Georgia game or in the LSU game. Now, if Alabama plays like they did in the Vanderbilt game, then this game could be competitive, but I still don't see Alabama having any chance of losing this one because Oklahoma's offense is just so bad, and Oklahoma's defense it may not be quite elite yet, but it's a very solid defense, and it's not the problem at all with them this year. If Oklahoma had a decent offense, they could have a good team, and their defense isn't as good as it could have been this season if they would have had a decent offense because their offense struggles to move the ball. So their defense is on the field so much that they get tired. But even though Alabama's at secondary isn't as good this season as last season, Oklahoma can't take advantage of that because Jackson Arnold has been the biggest five-star quarterback bust I think I've ever seen. And the quarterback that they benched him for, Hawkins, in the Tennessee game, I know played decent in the second half of that game. But when he actually became the starter, he looked at best as good as Arnold did. And Jackson Arnold only threw for 74 yards in the last game they played, which was against Missouri, whose secondary isn't as good as Alabama's is. And Brent Venables, I do think, will get another season as Oklahoma's head coach, even though I'm not sure if that's the right decision or not. And if he does get another season, him with Napier will be the top coaches on the list of coaches in the most danger of getting fired. I'm not convinced at all that Brent Venables is a good head coach. I know they've had a lot of injuries this season, which can't be helped, but this is so far below the normal Oklahoma team. And of course, I know Brent Venables is a great defensive coordinator, and I would gladly take him as my team's defensive coordinator. Of course, if Pete Golding were to leave at Ole Miss. Uh, but as a head coach, I'm not sure that he knows what he's doing. And Oklahoma's offensive line, I think, is going to get destroyed in this game by Alabama because Alabama's front seven is still really good. And Oklahoma's running back at Gavin Sawchuk, who was one of the best running backs in the second half of last season. Hasn't hardly done anything for them this season. He's only had 20 carries, and he's only averaging 2 yards a carry because their offensive line is that bad. And he's a good running back. I saw he will probably play in this game, and Oklahoma's transfer wide receiver Deion Burks, who got hurt earlier this season and came back and got hurt again in the Missouri game. I saw is going to be out for this game. But Farouk is back. He came back for the Missouri game, except he didn't do much. And Alabama's Ryan Williams is the best wide receiver that they've had in at least 3 seasons because he's elite. And the wide receivers that they've had these past couple of seasons, like Jermaine Burton and Isaiah Bond, were good receivers, but they're not wide receivers that you would have called elite. And Oklahoma has got to come up with a way to slow down Milroe's legs in this game, or they are going to get destroyed. He's a very dangerous runner. Now, Oklahoma's front seven is very good, and I think they can probably somewhat handle the Alabama offensive line and slow down Alabama's run game. And I actually don't think that Alabama will play at their ceiling in this game. Their defense, I don't really think will play as well as they can, like they did, in the LSU game when they held LSU to just 13 points, or how they did in the first half of the Georgia game. Uh, so I actually think Oklahoma may be able to score a little bit in this game, and I think Oklahoma will be able to get some stops on Alabama for a while in this game. But I do have Alabama getting the win over Oklahoma 28-14, which is about what the spread is. Alabama is a 13-point favorite over Oklahoma. And the last game is Kentucky at Texas. Kentucky's defense is for sure good enough to where if Arkansas's defense was able to slow down Texas's offense, Kentucky would have a chance to do the same. Kentucky slowed down Ole Miss's and Georgia's offense a lot when they played, and Texas, though, it has such a good defense, and Kentucky's offense is so terrible that I don't think Kentucky has any chance really of winning this game. I think Texas will do to Kentucky what they did to Arkansas defensively in this game. And I do think, though, that Kentucky will be able to slow down Texas's offense some in this game, but I don't think they'll play as well defensively as they did against Georgia or Ole Miss. I do have Texas getting this win fairly easily, 27-10 over Kentucky. So that will be it with this video, and please subscribe and thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon.